All right, welcome to another Tech Talk. This is Max Dennison, the Digital Inclusion Coordinator for the City of Pittsburgh. Today, my special guest is Taylor Ford, IT Specialist, IT Guru. We're going to have a good conversation today with Taylor, find out about her journey, see what gems we can learn from her journey, and kind of get into why she's into tech and what she's working on. So Taylor, if you don't mind, if you can introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Taylor Ford from IT's For Me. I'm the CEO and founder of the IT firm.
All right, so Taylor, we're going to go through your whole journey, but first, let's start with your company. What do you do? And then we'll backtrack. We'll get into from your beginning until all the way up till now. Tell the listeners, the people watching, about your company, what specifically you do, and as much as you want about your company.
I got you. So we are IT's For Me. We are a minority woman-owned IT firm. Our goal is to integrate technology in the company so they operate more efficiently and they can increase their productivity. We do this through a number of different services. One of our biggest is managed services. So what we do is provide help desk, computer protection, antivirus software, and we sort of act as your internal IT department. So when you're having questions, you may have printer issues, you need software, you need consultation, you don't know what you don't know. We offer those services. Outside of that, we also offer web design, social media management services. What we've really been doing is acting as the internal IT department for multiple companies. There's various reasons why they do that. They're given an IT director. They have an IT internal team that handles all of their internal IT technical issues, also does all their vendor liaison and helps manage their faculty and administration computers. That's where we've seen things be the most open, and that's like our niche.
Got you. So if somebody, I guess let's start in the beginning. So you've obviously built this awesome company, you've developed it, you built it up, it's minority owned, woman owned, which is all kudos to all of those, because we know, women are an anomaly in this field and in this space. Being an African American woman makes you a double I can't say that word, but it makes you special. And it's not often we see that. So let's do a little bit of backtracking and figure out, how did you get here? What introduced you to tech, or what was your first introduction to tech?
This is my favorite story to tell. I'm a Capricorn, so I like adversity. I thrive under pressure. You tell me I can't do something, and now I'm really going to get it done. So when I was 10 years old, my uncle Bobby Ingram, he was in the NFL. He's currently a Ravens coach now. And I was 10. And ironically, I wanted to play the Sims game, and you needed to be connected to the internet to do that. So we had this big house and no computer, which was crazy to me. So I was a problem solver and I wanted to play this game. So I asked him, would he get me a computer? And they kind of laughed me off, like, haha, she can't put together a computer. So he went out and got it, kind of just to see what I would do. He had the money. If I didn't do anything right, he could take it back. Well, they left for an afternoon and they came home and I had my Sims game up. I was on the Windstream account. I had connected the internet. I had totally impersonated my aunt. They were floored. They were like, how did you not only turn the internet on, but connect it to the computer and your game's on and you're together? So when I learned, I was 10 years old, that I could use computers to solve some of my problems, I became really, really interested into how else they could solve my problems.
Man, that's awesome. So previous to that, did you know computers was the way though? Like, was there something you've seen, or it was just the challenge that he presented?
It was just a challenge. I can remember the very first gifts that I got when I was about 5. I was in love with Barbies, and I got a Barbie house and had to have been 100 pieces, and I was only 5. And I was raised by my mom, my grandparents. I was raised by a village. I'm the definition of that. And my grandma was like, I'm not putting this together for you. And at the age of 5, I figured out how to put together my Barbie house. So I've always been drawn to puzzles. I've been drawn to problem solving. The computer happened to be, the vehicle that I needed to get to the Sims game, which was what my end goal really was. But I've always taken remotes apart and put them back together. My mom would get upset because I was taking her stuff apart. But I've always been into taking things apart and then seeing if I could put them together better than I found them.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so if you're talking to a 10-year-old kid or a parent who wants to get their kids into tech, is there anything that you can take from your story that would you just say would challenge them? Like, what advice would you give a parent or a kid who's 10 or 12 years old who we might want to go down the pathway that you went to?
I would say first and foremost, remember that the times are different. So I was a guru in my family because I was able to teach myself that. Kids are learning that way younger now. Like my 5-year-old is totally efficient with his iPad. So what I would say to parents now is to take that energy and try to direct it with them. I would say to invest with them, sit down and take the time and listen to what they're asking that they want to do, help them research it. I would say that one of the things that I do for my son is I invest in time, like listening to him, watching him on his iPad, seeing if there's other problems that we can solve with it. I think as a parent, if you kind of help your child navigate the space with them, you'll also be involved and you'll learn some things as well along the way. I've learned plenty from my 5-year-old.
Got you. Okay, so moving along, middle school, high school, where do you attend? Do you continue to do amazing things like the challenge with your uncle, or what are you, as you go through middle school and then high school, where's your mind at? How is tech intertwined, if any?
Well, tech was always intertwined. So after I did that for my uncle, I started a small little iPad business, an iPod business at the time, actually, where players would, send their iPods. I'd put the playlists on them and get them to my uncle. He'd ship them out. That's how I got my phones. So that was middle school, high school. I was always a little entrepreneur. And I used tech to do that, even like back then, or fixing things for my granddad and receiving money for that. So throughout, high school and middle school, I was really into the sciences. I went to school for chemical engineering. So I was really heavy in math. I was really heavy in all the sciences. And I obviously needed computers to do that. So I was still getting the scientific knowledge while using the entrepreneurial side of, the fact that this was when iTunes had just came out and Windows XP had just came out and you had to update your operating system in order to use it. And that was the first time that I had ever upgraded an operating system, and I was 11. And I just did it.
Who encouraged you, or how did you get to chemical engineering? How did you know to go be a chemical engineer? Because that's not something, chemical engineering, for those watching, engineering in general is, again, and I'm going to get it right this time, it is an extreme anomaly to see a woman in engineering. Some start, but for whatever reason, wraparound services, the ability to get help, they're not able to finish. And it's just not a field that you see a lot of women, and you definitely don't see a lot of African-American women, nor do you see actually a lot of African-American men, to be honest, and straightforward. So and specifically, I know my best friend's an electrical engineer, but I don't know many engineers. I know we have NESB and things like that. So how did you decide chemical engineering, which is one of the tougher engineering, if not the toughest? I've heard chemical and electrical go back and forth before.
Definitely chemical. We won't even go there.
How did you decide to go chemical? Is that why you went there, because it was the most difficult?
Well, one, again, I like a challenge. So that was as hard as I could go at Syracuse University outside of computer engineering. Shout out to my computer engineers. I actually got into that because of my sister. So my sister, who passed in 2018, she had sickle cell. And I wanted to be able to go to school so that I could, A, find a cure for sickle cell, and B, open up a processing and a dispensary for medical marijuana so that I would be able to grow what she needed and then be able to dispense to her in a way that would be good for her what she needed. She was on enough pain medication that it would have tranquilized a horse. And when she in turn passed in 2018, the medicine that they were taking was in turn killing her. So it was a terrible catch-22, a horrible plight. And when I, was younger, I knew that chemistry was going to be a way to get out of this. I needed to be involved. I needed to be in the field as an advocate for sickle cell, as an advocate for what medical marijuana does for them, as an advocate to not find a treatment like they like to do for us, to find a cure, and to be the one to say, no, we don't just need to treat this, we need to cure this. So I went to school for that, so that I could be on the front lines, and that so my sister would have an African-American woman advocate that would go, to the ends of the earth for her. So I actually went in the field for my end game, and that's still, one of my end games.
Wow, kudos to you, and sorry for the passing of your sister. So your mission to get into STEM was actually like driven from family and wanting to be a caretaker and somebody that could help and assist your sister. That's very deep. Wow, I did not know that part of your story. So that being said, okay, we know your why, which is a huge why. You get to Syracuse, and you're from the city or Penn Hills surrounding area. You went to school in the city. Syracuse is cold. It's up north. There's not a lot of help. Good basketball team. What is that experience like? I'm assuming you're one of few African American, probably people.
Few.
How do you navigate? How do you navigate that space? What kept you motivated? Obviously, the health of your sister, but what else kept you motivated, kept you going? Because at any time you could probably switch into another major.
This teacher, I'll never forget it. First day of chemical engineering, I'm bright-eyed, I'm bushy-tailed, and there's a group of African Americans, and no matter which situation that we're in, it's proven that if we're put somewhere and we don't know where to go, we cling, we'll come to each other. None of us knew each other, but we all knew that we were Black. So we sat together and we started talking, where are you from? Because no one, was from there. So the teacher came and he comes over to our little group and he looks at us and he goes, And I'm like, He's like, He said, look around at your friends. About only one of you, possibly two of you, will succeed in graduating this program. And I looked at my friends and I said, what is he talking about? Like, what does it mean? But he was right. There was two of us. And the second of us wasn't even a part of the conversation that we had that she transferred in a long time after that. And that statement that he made, every time I cried, every time it would get hard, every time I wouldn't be picked, because it dwindled. So after a while, it started out as 26. And then my sophomore year, we were down to 16. Then my junior year, we were down to about 3. And then my senior year, it was just me. And that comment that he said that only one of you was going to make it, when he said that, I said in my head, well, it's going to be me then, because I'm not going anywhere. And I went in that man's office all 4 years. And when I walked across the stage, he had to shake my hand. And I was the only hand he shook, and I didn't care because I was the one. But the fact that he thought so little about people who genuinely was excited to be in the industry, it made me want to fight. And it let me know what my purpose was. And my purpose was to be a light in a dark place. And I meant that. In the rooms, I would come and they would be all sad and everybody looking. I would say, hi guys, hey, I don't care if I'm the only Black one, what's up? I was sitting next to him, and my good friend, Tae Hung, he was a Korean, and he's always saw me as other. And he thought that it was so cool that I would still be myself. I was always going to be myself. I wasn't going to change. I didn't care what the teacher said. And that made him gravitate towards me. And once he kind of gave me the okay, people had opened up. But by that point, I had already had my shell. There were like African Americans in Syracuse for sure. So I had my friends obviously supported me and who were encouraged by my journey, because they would see me go long nights where everybody else is partying. I'm like, no guys, y'all gotta wait, I'm coming. but you gotta wait because I gotta finish this paper real quick. I gotta do this thermodynamics. But they understood, though, there was a running joke that if there was ever a nuclear bomb, that Taylor would be the one to keep us safe because I was the only one that knew the proper procedure. So that kept me a lot of friends. But my journey, it was difficult, but I'm glad that it was that because I appreciated all that much, all that much more. But it was definitely that comment that I would keep in the back of my head that I just refused to let him, just demolish a whole group. I just couldn't do it.
What was some of the toughest courses you had?
Oh, some of those courses. Where you want me to start? Let's see. Organic chemistry, physical chemistry 1, physical chemistry 2, thermodynamics 2. Quantitative reasoning wasn't bad. There was my favorite one. What was that favorite? It was my favorite math. Calc 3 was ridiculous. The differential equations. Most people hate that. I was a beast at differential equations. And that was the hardest math I took. So Calc 3, I struggled real hard because they added that third dimension and it messed me up. But Diff EQ, that was supposed to be hard. I kicked its butt. But I took some and nuclear fuel reprocessing, crazy hard. That was a grad level class that I just was like, come on, Taylor, like it's your last year. Let's really go hard at them. And I went too hard at them.
Now, knowing that, like hindsight 2020, if you could have prepared yourself, if you could have had yourself as a mentor, and then let's just say you're speaking to a young lady in high school right now, or middle school, what courses should they take to help be better prepared for what you went through? And what advice would you give them if they're going to go through? Because it seems like you have a naturally ingrained confidence within yourself. You obviously are turned up by challenges. Everybody doesn't have that gift. Some people will shy away from a challenge or like, whoa, that was too hard. I'm going to go the other direction. So I guess those are my two questions. What courses would you tell somebody to take? And how do you help a young lady or a young brother that's coming up build and develop that confidence?
The courses that I would take would be all of your math track. If you can get into the honors track, as early as actually middle school, because I was in honors math all the way from the time that I could be in honors math. I think the beginning of that track matters. So if you're in like the 6th grade, that's when, things kind of do tail off and you have more advanced math. Start in advanced math as young as you possibly can because math is cumulative. What you learn in the 6th grade still applies in the 12th. It's just to the 12th power. So I suggest that you branch out on that accelerated STEM and, math courses now so that you're ready to go, because you're not going to be able, no matter what you do, you will have to take a math and you will have to take a science. And if you're in the STEM, it's going to be somewhat of a higher math because you need it. So I suggest that you do that. What I would say to my younger brothers and sisters is that put your boots on and get ready, because it's going to get tough, but you can do it. The whole program is designed to make you quit. Once you realize that that's the case, you use it to make you better. You use your environments that are built to break you, to make you. And I went to Oakland Catholic. Well, it's a great school, but it can break you if you let certain things do so. Use adversity as a fuel and as a fire, because if it's hot, that's when it's the best. That means you're going to get something out of it. Nothing in life is easy. And engineering is so much short of that. If you want to be an engineer, you can absolutely do it. But what they don't tell you is it's truly going to be hard. You have to pray and you have to know in your heart that this is what God said you're going to do, and you stand on it. No matter when you waver, no matter when you fail the test, and ask for help. That's the thing that they don't do at this age. Go to your teacher's office hours. I stayed in my teacher's office hours in high school. They wrote me recommendations, and I can go back to those teachers to this day. Office hours count. It's not being a teacher's pet. It's getting to learn a deeper knowledge. Those office hours set me apart from all of the other students. So I would say to really hone in on those things.
Got you. What now? How do you develop that confidence? Is it put? How did you develop your confidence? Was it naturally a natural thing, or did it develop with every challenge that you overcame? Did you feel, I'm that much stronger? How do we get our kids to, our students, our scholars, to walk into a room and feel that confidence and feel like I could take on anything?
Well, it was nature and nurture. So my granddad's my biggest supporter. He literally felt like he thought the world of me. He laid out the red carpet for me since I was a little girl. So I've always had the confidence that I could do it because he instilled in me, you can do this, you know? So from a parent's side, that instilling that is how they go out into the world. My granddad said, you are the smartest, you are the brightest, you are the best that they've got. And I internalized that. I was the brightest, and I'm going to be the best, and I'm going to be the smartest. But outside of that, with every challenge that God blessed me to overcome, it put another feather in my cap. You know, when I graduated Syracuse, I was pregnant with my son. I came home, you know, and I had hit rock bottom from how I had felt. Every block that I had built since then built me into the woman that I am now. Every time, you know, I had to take a job that I didn't want to. I became an IT director at a company that had no African Americans in the office whatsoever, only in the field, in the history of the company. It was a global company. You know, I had to answer to people that I felt like I shouldn't have had to, but I did. You know, I had to learn humility. Every time God blessed me to knock another challenge out the park, only affirmed his promises. You know, I'm really big on standing on his promises. I'm blessed. I'm highly favored. I'm a child of God. So whenever I would get down, I would fail my test. I failed organic chemistry on numerous occasions. I would stand on that because I would, you know, be upset. My dad said I was smart, Lord, and I didn't pass the test. So what's this supposed to mean? You know, and I would lean not on my own understanding, but I would trust in his word. So a lot of my confidence came from my father. Others of it came from my heavenly Father. Every challenge that he helped me to, you know, every block that he helped me to build helped me to this day. So I would say that my faith is truly the essence of why I am as confident as I am today.
Got you. So now you spoke about your father, obviously your heavenly Father as well. Did you have any specific, and you did talk about how you would go to the after hours with the teacher or the school hours to get a deeper understanding of the information. Did you have any mentors in particular that saw you through the journey, or did you was it just you and your family? And what would you tell a kid who, unfortunately, some of the students we may serve may not have an intact family, or they may not be as fortunate enough to have those family connections. What would you say to a student who doesn't have those connections? And did you yourself have an outside mentor?
I didn't have an outside mentor. You know, all I had was my family, but my family support was all that I had. I didn't have necessarily their knowledge because I was the only one who went to school for IT. I was the only one who was in like trigonometry and pre-calc. And my granddad's like, yeah, I'm gonna rub your back, but I don't know what you're doing. So you know, right. When it came to academics, I kind of taught myself, and I used my counselors. You know, I went to Oakland Catholic. I did use my counselors as help there, and they were great. But on the academics, I was kind of by myself because my family was very smart and well off, but we're smart in our own areas, and this wasn't anyone's area but mine. So that was mine. But for women today, there is a lot more support than there ever was when I was a kid. So when I went to Syracuse University, the first time that I went up there, it was to stay the night with like a women in engineering.
Nice.
So I would say to reach out to those type of organizations like Women in Tech in Pittsburgh. You can even reach out to my organization, you know, if you just need guidance. But I would say to reach out to women groups. There are a lot of different groups now who are here to help women in tech and here to guide you. I went to school in like 2006. I hate saying it. I went to school in 2006. So this whole Women in Tech and STEM wasn't necessarily an initiative yet. I came in on the cusp of the initiative. Now, you know, you have groups, you have outreach, and I'm a transparent, open book. So the ladies can always, you know, come here and I'll give them some good advice too.
Nice. There's a huge gap right now in tech with minorities, men and women. If you had a genie and you had 3 wishes, or if you have full control and autonomy of education, how do we get young people more interested in tech?
I think we have to make it more tangible to their needs. So the reason why people like tech is because they can use it for something, like the Oculus goggles, for example. Virtual reality. People don't want to be here sometimes. That was a problem solved for that. Put these goggles on and let us take you somewhere. I think when we start to really listen to what they want, like some of them want to be audio engineers. You know, they don't want to be with just the regular computers. They want to be in a studio, in a lab, you know, learning. I think that as educators, if we listen to what they were asking for and then showed them that technology could help them solve these problems, they're going to be more interested because it's self-serving. People care about people, meaning themselves. I cared about that computer because I wanted to get the Sims game. It had nothing to do with helping my aunt pay her bills. It had nothing to do. I didn't need nobody even else use a computer. I did because I wanted to use it. And that's what made me want to learn it more. I needed it for my iPod. Well, my granddad only had Windows Vista at the time. I think it was Windows Vista. And you had to get to XP. You had to, you know, do the next upgrade. He didn't care about upgrading. I got the operating system because I needed it. So then I became invested in it. He couldn't catch up with me because I was like a bunny and I'm scoring from thing. But if you listen to that, you're kind of able to help their needs. Like at Syracuse, we had a maker space. We had 3D printing in there. They had a wood laser printer. I mean, they had all different types of things so that any industry could come in and collaborate. I was in there with architects, artists, people from the humanities. I mean, all different walks of life was able to come in this one room and make something, you know? So more maker spaces would help. Just listening to see what it is that they are trying to do and using technology to help them get to that next place.
Got you. Sounds good. So, you know, I do think that that's a problem, just in my experience and working as well, is that we're not listening to the students. We're just, this would be cool. This is what you should be doing. And this is what we'll build the program around versus what are you guys interested in? A part of the conversation is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Has there been any experience that maybe you have faced in tech that somebody else will face, you know, outside? I guess we could say that what the professor said, but once you graduated and then you got into the professional space, that was a challenge that was specific to you being a woman or African American or both.
Both.
And how did you overcome it? And what advice would you give for somebody who may face the same issue?
I had 3 things against me. I was Black, I was a woman, and I was a mother. So all 3 were killers for me. But if God opens a door, then no man can close it. I stand on that. So when I walked through that door, when you walk through that door, remember who opened that door, and can't nobody, Susie, Michael, Thomas, nobody can close that door for you. That's the first promise that you stand on. That's what I stood on. But outside of that, you know, sometimes I found myself trying to prove who I was because I had to work 12 times harder and I was doing circles around everybody. and they were still praising other people. But what I did is I learned that every experience that God puts you through is not in vain. That very same experiences, those same experiences that I had being the IT director, have built my company right now because I know what it's like to go through those things. I'm a totally different leader than I ever had. I'm the leader that I wanted to have. So when you embody the fact that you are the change that you want to be, I want to see people be able to kick adversity's butt. So that's what I have to make sure that I do. And that's what I would say to other people. You know, you have to recognize the space that you're in and use what you can to benefit. You know, you have to be cognizant of that and pray about it. I used to pray people out of my office. I'm so serious because I'll be getting ready to lose my job. And I'll be like, Lord, take them out. Please take them out, Lord, because I'm about to lose it. And they would turn the door and they would walk on out. I'm very big on that. And your support system. You know, your support. When you're in areas that they know, you know that you're not supposed to be in, use those times to show up because they already think you're not supposed to be in the room. So you got to show them why you are and why you're going to stay in the room. And when
have you ever had I'm sorry. Have you ever had a situation? We had another woman speak about, I guess you're in a room full of men. It's probably going to be predominantly white male men in a corporate environment. And she felt like her input wasn't being heard because she was a woman. Have you had any experiences like that specifically where it was you're in a room full of men, maybe some are other ethnicities, but it's majority men, and you needed to get a point across or you needed to get something understood, but you may have been being overlooked because of your gender as a woman. How did you make your voice heard without being while still being a team player? And if there's another female woman or even a man out there who may be feeling isolated in those spaces, what advice would you give them?
I actually just had this happen to me. It's so crazy that you asked that question, like professionally, just recently. What I did was, first and foremost, I called my granddad before I got in the room because I knew I was going to be the only woman in the room and I was intimidated. And he called me and he said, there's no feelings in business. There's no feelings in business, Taylor. They're going to walk in the room with no feelings. So you take your feelings and you put them away right now. And I said, okay, I could do that. And he said, you take the facts that you know and you come to the table ready. And I was intimidated when I sat down because it was all men. And although I was the highest in position in the room, actually, I felt the smallest. I felt the lowest, and I was also the youngest. But what I did was I stayed close to the facts. Knowledge is power. And I leaned on the fact that I possessed the most power in the room because I held the most knowledge. And as women, we usually know the most, but we get called on the least. So I came in knowing that knowledge is power and I've got it. So I don't need any validation from anybody in this room. And when I walked in with that intent and they tried to, pick at my emotions because the goal was to make me emotional so that I would misstep, I refused. They came in the room and I came in the room and I came in, kept saying, knowledge is power, Taylor. Knowledge is power. You have to be able to talk to yourself and I talk to myself more than I talk to anybody. There's times when people walk past me and I'm fully talking to myself and I don't want you to respond because I'm not talking to you. I want to talk to me. And I have conversations with me. And I kept saying that in my room, in my head. And when we sat down and we had the conversation, I let that lead me. I let my knowledge be king because no matter what, the men in the room had to say, my knowledge was going to trump any comment because that's what the root of it is. If they want your knowledge, So I used that and I used that confidence when I spoke. I spoke boldly. I didn't, quiver or go squeamish. If you're going to do it, you got to do it. And you got to say it like you mean it. Because if you, as a woman, if you even quiver, they're coming at that decision. They're going to question that because they feel as though they can't. So I honestly pretended like I was a man. And I took off my woman hat and I put on the fact that I am the CEO and I am the owner of IT is for me. And I can play ball just as hard as you can. Man, woman, and all. So I sometimes change. Sometimes you got to go into your alter ego. I got to pull her out sometimes and put her on.
I got you. And you said something. I want to make sure I quote. You said, women usually know the most, but get called on the least. And you said knowledge is power. So that's a bar right there. I want to make sure I
you better quote me on my bar now.
I have to quote. I'm gonna write that down as a quote for sure. Okay, so back into your story. You graduate Syracuse, chemical engineering degree. What's your next step? Tell me about your professional experience after that, and then walk me into the creation of IT for me and how you came up with that idea. Yeah, walk me through all of that. You graduate college.
Okay.
Your son?
Yes, my son.
Your son's on the way, or is he
He's
here
on the
yet?
way.
He's on the way. Where's your mind at? You have a chemical engineering degree. You're probably you're very profitable because you check every box. Even though sometimes it can be tough in the workforce, that definitely sets you apart. Though you're young, you're smart, you have an engineering degree. What happens? What do you do?
You fall. That's what you do. Life hits you right in the face, and you are either overqualified, meaning you're not going to want to stay because you have an engineering degree, or you're underqualified because you're not a chemical engineering director. So you get hit with the catch-22 whenever you graduate. And that was really hard for me because in my head, I'm coming out to 150 grand. Like, what? Where's the money? I need to be on it. I just got my degree. You think all of these things, and then life humbles you. And you find yourself taking jobs. Like I worked at Cricket, like jobs that in my head, I was like, Lord, what? And that's what I did for a minute. And then fast forward, I was able to acquire my first job as an IT tech. I went back to my passion because I couldn't get a job in my field. It was too hard. I just kept running into the same thing. So I said, well, I don't like engineering all like that anyways. I more so like IT. And so that's what I did. And I was an IT specialist for about a year and a half. And then I grew to a project manager and then director there. During my time there, I was the only person in IT. So I was a department of one. And it was a global company. It had just been bought out. So I was under a level of pressure that I had never, ever been accustomed to. I'd never worked for a global company. This is my first corporate job. I'm with all these people that, it was very different for me. But I had a party like myself, so a third party IT provider. And I was responsible for managing them and, managing all the internal IT. And that relationship was a bit tumultuous for a multitude of reasons. I'm like a bodyguard. This isn't just anywhere in my life. If you say you're going to give me something, I'm going to check on it, especially if my money's going towards it, right? So I would start to check things that I knew should have been done because I could see in the contract, but they weren't done. So they didn't like that. And then after a while, I kind of got them to show me how they were doing everything they were doing just so that I could prove that I could do it better. And once I was able to do that, I said, okay, I'm going to take this show on the road because the way that you guys are doing it is not right. You're not being honest with companies. You're not doing what you're saying you're supposed to do. You're charging them an exorbitant amount for a phone just because you said telecommunication. So that's just not going to work for me. So I left that company and I actually went out to work for another company prior to opening up mine. And that next journey was very different for me because I had left somewhat of Mount Olympus where I had a company car, I had a corner office, I had really built myself up, and I left that for something different. And that opportunity was short-lived because I realized that I was just the head and not the tail. And I couldn't be tamed. I couldn't be put into a box. Every time somebody tried to cage me, I would go crazy like a lion. So I realized that I needed to be in this world as my own brand and the controller of the brand, because I had a fire that was too bright and no man could contain it. They couldn't contain it at my first job. They couldn't contain it where I was at. And I was tired of men trying to contain this ferocity that I had. So I left, and I went to go into business for myself because I felt as though that companies needed someone with integrity. They needed somebody that they could trust. They needed somebody that could consult them without tearing their pockets apart. They needed somebody with morals and values, because it could get crazy in IT. You can charge an exorbitant amount and they can feel okay with that. I don't. My prices are affordable to reasonable, but I work with them. I don't always shoot at the highest, because sometimes I can help you down here. So I wanted to be the antithesis to my industry. And I went into business about 4 years after entering the professional world. And I realized that it couldn't contain me. So I didn't want to be in it anymore.
Nice. So you've seen a problem, integrity being a problem. So your company, it seems like that's kind of a trend in your story. Much of your work is driven by some type of mission, right? So early on, engineering was a mission behind your sister not feeling well. And then the idea that the professor thought that you guys weren't graduating. So the new mission was, we're going to prove to him that we're definitely going to graduate. And then you got into the professional world. You seen that people weren't doing right. You're like, hey, I'm going to be the antithesis, like you said, to this. I'm going to be the person who actually does right by people in tech. Winding down, what makes you great at what you do? If you were going to build I always ask, if you were going to build another you, what would be some of the characteristics that make you great at what you do in your position?
Okay. First and foremost, I have integrity. That's not something that just comes lightly in this industry. That's the first thing. Second, I'm transparent. I'm very transparent with you. So you're going to know what you're going to get. There won't be any confusion. Third, I'm extremely loyal. I'm loyal to my clients. I don't backdoor them. I sit down with them and I tell them the honest truth, because I care for you as a client outside of money. And number 4, I'm determined as hell. So don't let there be a problem. There's no problem that Taylor Jane Ford cannot solve. And I mean that, like, in my hardest of hearts, I feel as though, that's the case, and I embody that. So when they have a problem, I have a problem, and I don't do problems. So I really, I bring all of myself to these deals. I bring all of myself to everything I do. I brought all of myself today. I am fully present there for my clients when, if, and should they need me. So I believe that makes me totally different, and I'm personable. That's always fun.
Is there anything that you would want to tell a student that's just starting or embarking on this journey, and also your contact information? Obviously, anybody watching, we will when we post this to our channel, we will also post Taylor's information so you can reach out to her. But is there any personal message? And if you want to, there's a direct way that somebody could reach out to you if they do have a question or need advice, Taylor, if you could provide that for them now.
Absolutely. You can reach out to us on our website, www.itsforme.tech. You can reach out to me on my Facebook if you want to, get to me personally. I'm not necessarily my company, but you want to ask me, something personally. It's Taylor Jane Ford on Facebook. If you're not my friend, it's okay. I will still see your message. You can also write on our company page. What I would tell the children today is to keep hope. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive, and know that nobody's going to do it for you. This is the time where you think it's quick and it's easy and somebody's going to do it. Nobody's going to go get your degree for you. Nobody's going to go do your research for you. You got to do the work yourself. But I'm absolutely here to support you. I know that many of you don't know me, but Max can tell you I am an open book. You see me on a multitude of occasions. I'm this way in person, but you know, I do let out to myself, and it's free. You don't have to pay for it. Mothers who are concerned, you know, about your daughters and you don't know, you know, even talk to them. Please feel free to reach out to me. I consider that God's work, and I am never too busy to do God's work.
Okay. Hey, well, Taylor, thank you again for jumping on this call for another Tech Talk. Hopefully everybody watching, anybody that watches this can learn from Taylor's journey through chemical engineering, through tech, through creating her own company, and just being a woman, being an African woman, and being a mother, all in this space and being successful. Thank you again for joining. Again, after we edit and put everything together, this conversation will be put up on our YouTube channel for anybody that needs to watch and gather some gems from Taylor's journey. Thank you again, Taylor.
Thank you for having me.
Coming on. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Max.